Hello, and welcome to this podcast. I'm so excited to start. I've been wanting to start a podcast for a long time, but recently I've gotten quite a few signs to start one. And before I really launch into things, I wanted to just introduce myself, tell you a bit about me and where I'm at currently and my job. So that way, if you already know me, if we're friends, or if you have no idea who I am, you'll get a better sense of where I'm coming from and what this podcast is going to be about. So, first of all, right now I'm located in Peru near a city called Iquitos. So, I'm actually currently, to be really specific, I'm laying in a hammock at an ayahuasca healing center. It's actually called a shamanic healing center where we serve ayahuasca and we work with Shipibo curanderos. So, the center's called Dream Glade. And Iquitos is a really interesting city in Peru. First of all, it's really remote and isolated and hard to get to. It's a really interesting city because you cannot drive there. You can only get to Iquitos by boat or by plane. So that's what makes it pretty remote and isolated. And it's interesting because I think it's technically considered an island, or at least people here call it an island, but it's not surrounded by ocean. It's actually surrounded by rivers. So it's a really interesting place. It's like deep in the heart of Peru, northern Peru, and it's considered the Amazon jungle or the Amazon rainforest. We're really close to the Amazon River here. And specifically at Dreamglade, at this healing center, we are about an hour's drive away from Iquitos. So to even just get here from, let's say, Chicago, which is where I'm from, it takes a lot of traveling. It's a pretty big commitment to even get to this healing center in the first place. I'll tell you my commute here. So if I'm flying from Chicago, I have to take at least one connecting flight within either the U.S. or another country before I get into Lima, because there's no direct flights. So let's say I fly from like Chicago to Atlanta, and then I fly from Atlanta to Lima, and then I fly from Lima to Iquitos. And then once I get to Iquitos, I usually have to take a moto taxi ride up the highway about an hour, and then from there, there's a dirt road that takes about 45 minutes walking to get to the gate of Dreamglade. And then once you get through the gate of Dreamglade, which is where I live and work, you have to walk another 15 minutes on a bumpy dirt path. So it's a pretty big adventure coming here. If you're a guest, you don't have to deal with getting from Iquitos to the center. But if you're me, I work here, that's what I have to do. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I got to work here. I was a guest. I started as a guest here at Dreamglade about 6 years ago. And it's kind of a cliche at this point to say ayahuasca changed my life, but ayahuasca did totally change my life. And just, I'll give you a little brief background on that. So I came here for a week, which is 3 ceremonies is the minimum amount of time that you can spend here. So that includes 3 ceremonies, and it's at least 5 days. We have ceremonies every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I came to drink here the first time about 6 years ago, and I was scared shitless. Like, I was terrified to drink ayahuasca. It was not my idea. It was my boyfriend's idea at the time. He really wanted to try this out. So I eventually agreed to come to Dreamglade, but I said, there's no way I'm drinking ayahuasca. I'll just come there because it looks like a pretty place to stay and detox from technology and unhealthy food and some of my unhealthy habits and stuff. But no way I'm drinking ayahuasca. At that time, I had a lot of anxiety and depression. And you just was not thinking that drinking ayahuasca sounded like a fun idea to me. So the second I met Stace, who's the owner of Dreamglade, when I got to Iquitos and Stace pulls up in his truck to pick us up to bring us to Dreamglade, the center, I just immediately looked into his eyes and I just trusted him. I could just tell right away, this guy is not a bullshitter. Like, he's not somebody in white robes who thinks he's way better than everyone else and he has some secret keys to the universe. But just looking into his eyes, I could tell this guy's the real deal. Like I said, he's not a bullshitter, which I really appreciate and respect, because everywhere in the world, but especially in spiritual circles, you can find a lot of bullshit. And so right when I met Stace, I was like, okay, this feels like somebody I can trust. I could just tell there was something about him that I could trust, which of course is a really important part if you're going to do something as vulnerable as drinking ayahuasca, you want to for sure trust who you're drinking with. So anyway, we met Stace, and he gave us the spiel before we drank the ayahuasca about what to expect during ceremony and how to kind of work with ayahuasca. And by the end of his speech, I had decided, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to drink ayahuasca. And long story short, I just had the most amazing time. And to be honest, I don't fully remember everything that happened that week. And maybe I can do a separate episode on, my trips and what they were about, what they taught me, because they were, really incredible and life-changing during that first week. But what I can say is not only ayahuasca helped me, but it was also a lot of the stuff that Stace and Drew talked me through. So Drew, also a really, really important person and part of the whole Dreamglade experience. He has been working with Stace since the second week that Dreamglade opened. So he's been working here alongside Stace for 9 years. They've had thousands, literally thousands of guests come through, thousands and thousands of ceremonies. So Drew is absolutely a huge part of Dreamglade. So it's not just ayahuasca, but Drew has a gift with just talking to people. And he can talk people through things, help them see things differently, help them shift their perspective. He is like the best therapist you've ever met, and he's never had any training. His training was through experience, hands-on experience, working with people, working with medicine, as in ayahuasca. So Drew was also an integral part of that experience, and he continues to be such a huge part of the experience at Dreamglade here too. So Stace and Drew, big characters in the whole Dreamglade story, big characters in my life right now, so I'll probably be bringing them up a lot on this podcast. Stace, to give you a picture, is a tall British dude. He's bald. He kind of looks like a pirate. I've always thought he looks like a pirate. He has just like one gold hoop earring. It wouldn't surprise me if he walked around with a parrot on his shoulder, honestly. And he's got tattoos, and he's not like a huge dude, but he's tall. He's a presence, and, nice British accent. And then Drew is not quite as tall, but he's from Austin, Texas. Hasn't been home in a while, so he's been in Peru for the better part of the past decade. And I've never met a more dedicated team. Like, when I think of the word devoted or dedicated, I just think of Stace and Drew and Raul and Lydia. So I'll bring up Raul and Lydia now. Those are the two curanderos, which, people say shaman these days, which is kind of just become like a Western term for healer. But around here, the word curandero literally means like a healer, someone who cures. So that's the word that Raul and Lydia would use when they describe their work here. And they are from the Shipibo descent, which means they come from the Shipibo tribe, which is in the Amazon. So they live in Pucallpa, another town in the jungle. That's kind of close to Iquitos, but again, you can only get there by flight or by boat, which would take a really long time. So they came to Dreamglade just before I came to Dreamglade as a guest. So I've only ever drank ayahuasca with them as curanderos. And since I've been working at Dreamglade for about 1.5 years now, and I've really gotten to know them as people, I've just never seen them waver, man. They are such grounded, amazing people. Like, so humble, so kind, so loving. And I've never seen them show anything but love and kindness, which, we're around each other all the time, like constantly. And they just never falter. And that level of just love constantly is, man, it's something I really look up to and really appreciate. And when I think about them, my heart just swells in love, because it's just like, these people are amazing. They're dedicating their whole lives to just helping people. And I think that's what Stace asked Raul when he first started working here, like, why do you want to work here? And Raul said, I just want to help as many people as I can. And to me, that's really obvious. That's just what they do. And like I said, I live with them. I literally live in a house with Raul and Lydia and Drew, so we all sleep under the same roof, our own rooms, but they don't sleep that much. Like on ceremony nights, they sleep like 4 hours a night, and damn, they have the best attitudes. Like, I need a lot of sleep. Like, I'm like a 9-hour girl. I just need a lot of sleep. And when I don't get sleep, I feel grumpy. And they're getting like 4 to 5 hours of sleep a lot of nights. And I've never seen them even close to being grumpy. Like, there was one time when Stace, and Drew were all kind of like dragging our feet about the ceremonies and how we're tired. And, just kind of, as Stace says, whinging. I love that word. Like, British word for complaining. We're just kind of whinging. And Stace turns to Raul and just says, like, are there ever nights where you just don't want to work? Meaning, like, you just don't want to come into the Maloka, which is where we hold our ceremonies and drink ayahuasca and, hold the space for all these people and help them healing while you're under the influence of ayahuasca. Because him and Lydia, they drink ayahuasca every single ceremony, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 4 weeks in a row until we have our week off. So they're working like hours and hours and singing hours and hours during these ceremonies. So he asked Raul, like, do you ever feel like you just don't want to work? And Raul didn't miss a beat. He's just like, nope, never. Like, he just never has a day where he doesn't feel like showing up to work. And we were all kind of like a little bit in disbelief, but you could also tell he really meant it. Like, he wasn't bullshitting. He really meant that he's never had a night in there where he just doesn't want to do it. So that's a little bit about who we call the Dream Team. Our staff here who, the main staff who works here at Dreamglade. And when I talk about ayahuasca, I should mention that this is the only retreat center I've ever had any experience drinking ayahuasca at. And like I said, the only two curanderos I've ever drank with are Lydia and Raul. And this is a lot of reasons, but number one, because ayahuasca is not something you fuck around with. It is not child's play. And a lot of people, especially us Westerners, we just don't understand that there's so much that we can't see with our five senses and so much that we haven't been taught in our education that exists. And just because we don't know about it or maybe don't believe in it doesn't mean it's not still existing. It's not still there. So I should note that, when I talk about ayahuasca and these things, I'm saying it in the context of Dreamglade because that's all I know. And that's the only center I can recommend because, like I said, it's the only one I've been to. And I know for sure the quality of all these people. We all just truly want the best for our guests. And Stace will always say, our one goal, well, first of all, our top priority is safety. Everyone's safety is our number one concern. Makes us feel like flight attendants, which we kind of are in a different way, but whatever. So after safety, it's like our biggest goal is we want everyone leaving here feeling better than when they arrived. So if we can get every guest to leave here feeling better than when they arrived, our goal has been reached. And when I see Stace and Drew and Lydia and Raul just work tirelessly, like so devoted and so committed to what they do, it's just truly amazing. And I just have no desire to drink ayahuasca anywhere else because we have had a lot of guests coming here to Dreamglade and they've had not so great experiences at other ayahuasca centers. I'm not going to name any names because, like I said, I can't speak personally for them, but I've just heard enough stories where I'm like, you know what, I don't want to risk it. We've only had great things come out of this center, and like I said, Raul and Lydia are as solid as it gets. And when we talk about curanderos or shamans and everything, they are humans at the end of the day. Like, yes, they are extremely powerful and they can probably like see into spiritual realms all the time and travel around astral planes and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, they're humans right now. So they're not like every shaman or curandero you meet is not an enlightened being. They're humans. And we have to be very careful, like, since ayahuasca is becoming famous and people are starting to talk about it now, and everyone's like, oh, ayahuasca, it's a wonder drug and you can just take it and it'll fix your life. First of all, it's not a silver bullet, unfortunately, or in my opinion, fortunately. There's no silver bullets here, so it's not like you take one thing and it fixes your life. And the reason I say fortunately is because that'd be boring. Like, you wouldn't learn anything from that if you could just take a pill and it would just fix all your problems. What did you learn? Nothing. So anyway, I digress. But this is why I can only talk about ayahuasca in terms of Dreamglade, and I can only recommend Dreamglade as a center. Of course, I'm biased. Like I said, I work here, but I recommend it super highly because I trust every single person here with my life. Like, I literally would trust them with my life. And I feel like when you're drinking ayahuasca, that sounds really dramatic, but I think you should trust the people who are giving you the medicine and who are helping you while you're with the medicine and who are holding the spiritual space for you while you're on the medicine. You should trust those people with your life. So that's what I'm going to say about ayahuasca and Dreamglade. And so I was a guest here 6 years ago, had an absolutely incredible time. It really just changed my life, helped me shift a lot of things. And I won't go into it too much, but I will say, my whole life, I wouldn't say I was an atheist. Like, especially when I was younger, I always felt like there was something bigger than me, like there had to be something. And once in a while, I would feel it. Like, even though I really hated going to church a lot, there would be times where once in a while at like Christian summer camp or something, or even in church, we'd be singing a song and I would just feel something where it was just, I couldn't put into words, but I'm like, there's something here. Like, I just know, maybe it's not aligned with what the pastor's up there talking about, or maybe, the Bible verses aren't making sense and the lessons don't make sense and the God doesn't make sense. But what does make sense is what I feel, which is just like, yeah, there's more than we can see. And we're all connected, and it's all love. So I don't want to say I was an atheist, but by the time I got to Dreamglade, I was pretty, very uncomfortable with the idea of anything spiritual, and I was uncomfortable with anything that wasn't, pretty much materialist science at that point. And looking back, I think it's because this thing happened where I think in a lot of, intellectual groups, where people have been told that they're smart or they want to feel smart, it seems like the thing to be an atheist. It seems like people would view you as an idiot if you were not an atheist. Oh, you're so dumb, you just want to believe in God because that makes you feel better. And I gotta admit, there was a part of me that believed that, and there was a part of me that took pride in believing that, oh yeah, there's nothing, and those people are just dumb who believe in something. But I don't think that lasted for too long because of that feeling, because of that knowing that just didn't, as far as I can remember, it didn't ever fully leave me where I was like, there's got to be more than this. So by the time I drank ayahuasca, she really just blasted me open, man, in terms of my perceptions. She helped me view shadow parts of myself that had previously been, blind spots for me. And, they're called blind spots because we literally cannot see them. So she helped illuminate those. And I just left Dreamglade with a much more open mind and a lot of tools on how to process my emotions and just feeling my feelings. And that really helped with my anxiety because I realized my panic attacks were literally just me resisting fear, because fear was coming up. And it didn't matter where it was coming from. Maybe it was coming from being inside of a plane or inside of a very tiny train car, or maybe it was fear in a classroom or whatever. I had a lot of panic attacks, but it was always fear was coming up and I was resisting it. I was pushing it away. I was judging it as something bad. And I was like, oh, fuck. No. Don't want to feel this. And of course that would make it worse. And it would just escalate and spiral until I was having a full-blown panic attack a lot of the times. And so anyway, what I learned from Dreamglade and what I now explain to a lot of people while working here is just that, is how to just feel your emotions instead of resisting them, and how that can help in so many areas of your life. So I could go way deeper into that, but for now, I'm just going to leave it with that, as those are really huge things I learned from the first week that I was here at Dreamglade. And then over the next 5 years, I sort of, I don't know how to put this, dismantled my life, but not in a horrible way. And I kind of explained to people that it was like I had all these pillars up. and these pillars that were kind of holding my life together at the time. So I had this long-term boyfriend. He was a pillar, my relationship. And then I had a group of friends. That was another pillar. And then we had our shared apartment. That was a pillar. And then the spot where we lived. And then my career. And so one by one, I realized, I didn't usually realize this until it after it happened. I didn't realize it in the moment, but one by one, I started knocking down those pillars because I realized that they were built on just a rotten foundation. And anything that's built on a rotten foundation is going to be rotten. It's not going to stand for too long. It just needs to come down. So one by one, I had to knock down those pillars. And looking back, it's like each one felt like a death. Like it felt like not only was, like, for example, not only was the death, it was the death of the relationship itself and me grieving our relationship and being with this person, but it was also the death of me and my identity, who I thought I was, who I had become, and the death of that person so that I could be reborn as someone else. And again, none of this was clear to me in the moment, but looking back, like, this is what was happening. I was just experiencing, when I hear people say, like, oh, I had to go through deaths and rebirths, that always sounds so dramatic to me, and I don't really know what they're talking about. But then I realized, to me, this is what it was, at least up until this point in my life, where it was the death of a long-term relationship. And then it was the death of a lot of friends who I realized just we weren't aligned anymore. We weren't in resonance with each other anymore. We weren't in harmony. And then it was the death of where I lived. And then ultimately, this took like 5 years, but I think I only had like one pillar left that had been erected before my ayahuasca, initial experience, which was my career. So I was living in a new city. I was living in San Francisco with my sister. We were having a great time. Lovely friends, and I basically only had, like, from before, I only had my old job, and I had been trying, because this job was cushy, I'm not gonna lie. It could be a contracting job, so I had it for a point where I was working for a few months on, and then the contract would be up, and I could just travel for a little bit. And then also I could work remote, so I would end up working from beautiful places like Costa Rica and Mexico. And it paid me really well, and I actually liked the job. Like, I liked the work. So all of that stuff felt good for a while. And so I was doing this work for a while. And after that ayahuasca retreat, I started working I continued working really hard on myself. So I did everything that, everyone says to do. Like, this isn't new stuff, but meditation, yoga. I wasn't like a big yogi or anything, but I would just practice it once in a while and start to practice meditation more regularly. And I started seeing a hypnotherapist who actually ended up becoming a huge role in my life. I did a lot of plant medicine ceremonies, not with ayahuasca, but, for example, a peyote ceremony, which, again, I wouldn't recommend to anyone just because peyote is an endangered plant. But that's a whole nother podcast episode. So I'm not recommending anyone goes and tries peyote. It wasn't my favorite experience anyway, but that's a whole nother story. So from that trip, though, from that journey, I learned through a friend I met there about this amazing hypnotherapist. So I got connected with him, and he was just incredible. He helped me so much over the next few years, just kind of not only unpacking my subconscious through hypnosis, but also we would just have talk sessions and just talk shit out. And man, that guy was amazing. He really helped me. And after every hour and a half session, I just felt like a totally different person. And I just felt like I had a new direction in life, or my direction in life was so clear. So anyway, I'm telling you all this because it wasn't just one thing that changed my life. Ayahuasca did give me a huge boost, but then I just had to kind of keep the ball rolling, start these activities I knew were good for myself. I started dancing. I started going for walks very consistently. What else did I do? Journaling. Journaling is a very important part for me. I mean, it's huge. It's just so helpful. I have a dream journal So I journal about my dreams every morning, and then I have a regular journal where I just journal whenever I need to. And I journal almost daily. It doesn't have to be really long, but man, that's so helpful. So I think we all know the things that we need to be doing or the things that are helpful to do. But I think ayahuasca was the push I needed to actually do these things. Another big thing it helped me was stop drinking so much. Because before I had gone to Dreamglade, alcohol was my drug of choice or my, numbing escape of choice. And again, that could be a whole nother episode in itself. But at first, after I came to Dreamglade, I laid off on the booze and I just felt so good. So it kind of felt like it gave me a whole new lease on life. And I started doing all these new behaviors and yada, yada, yada. So as my life kind of progressed and I started slowly knocking down these pillars and growing into this new version of myself, like a better version of myself that I wanted to be like, I was meeting with my hypnotherapist and I was still working in this job. So I went to this, what was it? It was a San Pedro or Huachuma retreat in Costa Rica, which was absolutely amazing. I had such a great 10-day experience in Costa Rica. We did San Pedro, also called Huachuma, and we did Bufo, 5-MeO-DMT. It was just such an amazing experience, great facilitators, great group, amazing location. But anyway, when I did this ceremony for the first time with Huachuma, also a cactus, just like peyote, but totally different medicine. So when I did this experience with Huachuma, the message was very clear. It was like, okay, what are you doing with this job thing? Like, why are you still working in this job? Because you hate it. And you know that as much work as you're doing on yourself and all the other areas of life, it's capping you. It's holding you back. Like, it's just fully stopping you from going up to your next level, like reaching your fullest potential. And I knew this. Like, I knew this deep down. A part of me knew this. It wasn't like groundbreaking or shattering information, but to have it pulled up so clearly was just kind of like a oh shit reckoning moment where I just realized, what am I doing? I can no longer do this. And I know this isn't the answer for everybody. Like, not everybody needs to quit their corporate job and do something dramatic and knock down all the pillars of their lives and be reborn. Like, you don't have to follow my life path. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I am suggesting you take a look at your life and maybe you make some changes, because I think most of us know what we need to do. We just need to make the first step. We just need to take, literally, it's called the leap of faith, but we need to take the leap, make the jump. And even if it's small little moves one at a time, that's enough to make little changes in our life. So anyways, I got this message from Huachuma that was like, you need to, like, what are you doing with your job here? Like, you're stagnating. This is holding you back. So there was nowhere I could look from that experience. There was no out. There was no escape. I was just receiving that message and knowing it was the truth. And that was like, oof, okay, I'm going to have to quit my job. And then I went back home. I think I don't know where I was living at that time, but I kind of slipped back into my real life and kind of tried to ignore that message from the medicine. Kind of tried to push it under the rug, like, didn't really see that. Just ignore it. Maybe if I ignore it, I can still have this cushy job that allows me to work remote and make a bunch of money. And maybe I'll do healing stuff on the side. And then I'm, slowly these feelings of just my soul getting sucked out of my body, as every morning when I opened up my laptop to look at emails or respond to messages, I literally felt like my soul was just wanting to leave my body. Like, what are you doing? Like, fuck this. No. And that feeling just got stronger and stronger and stronger until one time when I had a session with my hypnotherapist, he suggested to me that, and by the way, he had been listening to me talk about this stuff for years, so this man is patient, but he finally suggested at this point, like, sometimes, Brittany, we need to make room so that new things can enter our life. And right when he said that, I just knew it was so true for me that I needed to clear out this job to allow space for something new to come in. And that if I was staying at this job, I wasn't allowing any space for something new to come in. I just kept hoping, like, maybe something new will pop up. so that I can just seamlessly transition from my job into this other thing and not have to make any leaps of faith and just keep a steady stream of money coming in, all of those thoughts. But right when he said that, I just knew, like, oh, damn, I have to put my money where my mouth is here. Like, I have to practice what I preach and trust in the universe. And I mean, even that phrase is kind of cringy to some people, but it's like sometimes you just got to trust. Sometimes you just, like I said, have to take that leap of faith. And what am I doing if I'm not doing that? So right when he said that, I knew, okay, this is, as my friend Emily would call it, the reckoning. This is the moment where I make the change, where I make the jump. I have to. I'm just so miserable at this job, at this life. I don't feel like I fit in here. I feel like I'm wasting my life. I had this quote on my wall for a while that was on a post-it note that just said, I think it's Mary Oliver. She says, "Tell me, what are you going to do with your one wild and precious life?" And I just kept looking at that quote every day when I'm working at this job. And I'm like, is this what I'm doing with my one wild and precious life? Like, I'm pretending that, I'm pretending that I'm happy with this job and doing this, but really what it is a security blanket because I think I need to have money. And why do I need to have money? It's just like to buy things that I don't need either. It was just so, it felt like I was being a hypocrite. So I eventually quit that job. And a lot of people are like, that was really brave of you. And yes, I will give myself some credit. I have realized over the past few years of doing this work that I am a pretty brave person. But I don't think I'm unique in that way. I think a lot of us, most of us, are way more brave than we think. And I will also say that I never felt brave. Like, there was never a moment where I was like, oh man, I feel so brave for making these decisions. It was just like I got to a point where I could not do what I was doing anymore. And it was the same with every pillar I knocked down. It was like I would get to this point, the reckoning, like I said, my friend calls it, where I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't take one more step in the direction I was heading because something inside of me, now I know it as my intuition, or my higher self or whatever it is, but something inside of me was just screaming at me like, what are you doing? You know that this isn't the direction you should be going. You know that you should be making this stop right now. You need to put this train on the other set of tracks here and start chugging along in the other direction. And it just felt like my higher self or whatever was just so like yelling at me so strongly in those moments. And sometimes my whole body would even react like with the anxiety. I would feel it in my chest. Like I would just feel it tighten, or my whole body would feel tight or shaky or hot or whatever. There was a lot of signals from my body that would be saying, what are you doing, girlfriend? This does not feel good. Like, why are you going in this direction? That it does not feel good at all. That just doesn't feel right for you. So I just want to point out here that I never felt brave. Like I said, looking back, I do have respect and appreciation for that version of myself for making the brave decisions. But I think we all can do these things. And it wasn't like a big eureka moment. It was lots of little tiny steps over a period of years that kind of led me to the point where I finally quit my job and I'm looking at my life and I'm thinking about those pillars like, wow, I have knocked down every single one. Like, I no longer have any original pillar that was there before I went to Dreamglade and drank ayahuasca. So that was a pretty incredible moment. And that's when I started to feel like a butterfly. And who knows how many times I'm going to be referencing this on my podcast, because I just love me a good butterfly metaphor, butterfly analogy. I freaking love butterflies. They are just so magical. But anyway, and I love how the word for butterfly in Italian is farfalla. I think that's it. Like the noodle. I just love that. So anyway, my butterfly analogy was during that same Wachuma San Pedro ceremony where I got the message strongly like, girl, you need to quit your job. Like, you need to become a healer. You've always known this. This is your path. You need to face the fairies, face it. And during that same ceremony, I wrote a journal entry and I was like, yes, I need to do this. And also, I am now becoming the butterfly. Like, it's time for me to step into the butterfly because I feel like I've been, the caterpillar, just inching along, happy as a clam. And then I also went through the goo stage where, I kind of built myself a little cocoon and just got inside of it, and my whole body just decomposed and I turned into goo. Again, this is a butterfly metaphor, but it's so crazy to me that this actually happens in life. Like, how magical that a caterpillar just basically turns into goo. And I mean, who knows if it knows what's happening or not, if it's even consciously aware, but it's like dissolves in darkness and then reforms in this like dark ball, the cocoon, just totally reforms with fucking wings, and gorgeous wings. Like, I am living in the Amazon right now. I've seen some of the most beautiful magical butterflies that I didn't even know existed on this planet Earth. I'm talking about those big blue morpho ones that are like black with the massive blue iridescent on them, but also just butterflies of every color and shape and size. And they're just so magical. Like, I don't know if it gets more magical than a butterfly, but especially the fact that it had to go through all of that to become a butterfly. And then before it even, comes out of the cocoon, an important step is it needs to use its newly formed wings to bust out of that cocoon, so that when it comes out of the cocoon, it's like covered in goo, but it's got the strength that it built up in the wings from literally breaking out of its own cocoon so that it can fly. So anyway, I'm probably going to use that metaphor again in this podcast just because I love it and it can pertain to so many things, and just because it's a fucking miracle that that actually happens, and that's how butterflies are a thing and flying around. Anyway, so in that moment, I was like, with the Wachuma ceremony and realizing I need to quit my job and realizing I just like, it's time for me to actually stop thinking of my higher self as someone who's just like floating around in the clouds looking down on me. Someday you'll get to be her. It's like, you need to step into her. Like, you need to become her now. Like, now's the time. So when I quit my job, realized all those pillars I'd crashed them down myself, I realized like, oh, it's time for me to enjoy being the butterfly right now, which is kind of what happened. For the next few months, I just really enjoyed feeling like a freaking butterfly. Like, maybe for the first time in my adult life where I felt like in a place of such self-love. I was proud of myself. I was loving myself. I was trusting in the universe as a whole. I was loving my friends. I was loving my family. And when I got the job at Dreamglade, I was like, yep, everything is just falling into place so well. And it's amazing how that all works. So, and I believe after, it's not just like, oh, I'm the butterfly for the rest of my life now. It's like, nope, guess what happens after you're the butterfly? You die, bitch. You die. And then you are reborn as a caterpillar or whatever you want to be reborn as. But I knew that my time as a butterfly was probably limited, so I just enjoyed it, and it was so great. And so anyway, that's the metaphor with the butterfly there. But I'll go into a little bit about how I got my job here, because it's pretty crazy, to be honest. Like, it still blows my mind to think about. This is the reality of the situation. This is actually how the events in my life have unfolded, because it's straight up magic to me. It's like, on one hand, it's magic and it's mind-blowing, but on the other hand, it's not surprising at all, and it makes sense. So after I came back from Dreamglade as a guest the first time, I decided to make a vision board. And I know this is cheesy. Some people will be rolling their eyes. But I made a vision board, and it wasn't like, oh, here's all these things I want to manifest materially. Like, here's all this shit I want to have. No. It was, how do I want to feel in my life? Like, how do I want to feel? So I spent a lot of time cutting photos out of magazines. And then when I couldn't find stuff in magazines that I really wanted to be on my board, I printed pictures out, right? So on this vision board, I had photos of yoga, of meditation, of the jungle. I have photos of ayahuasca vines. I have photos of scuba diving and an older couple just dancing super happy on a beach. Like, I had all these pictures on the vision board. And I literally printed out pictures of, like I said, ayahuasca vines and of Dreamglade, the center. Not because I was like, oh, I want to work there someday, but because I was like, I want to feel how I felt when I was at Dreamglade. And I should tell you right now, a few things changed my life about Dreamblade, and it wasn't just ayahuasca. One of them, of course, was ayahuasca. She was a massive help in my transformation. But also a huge part was, like I said, talking to Stace and Drew. And a huge part was reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. So if you haven't read that book, highly suggest it. It seriously changed my life, and I'm not just saying that lightly. But anyway, so those 2 book recommendations from this podcast episode so far, The Power of Now and The Untethered Soul. Those 2 books changed my life. So anyway, I realized that I needed to have a clearer vision of how I wanted to feel in my life. So that's why I made this vision board. And I put pictures of Dreamblade on there because when I was here, I felt like the true version of myself. I felt like all of these layers, I had just peeled them off of myself. It was all this fake shit, this inauthenticity, these layers of shame, like whatever they were. I felt like a bunch of darkness and just crap energy that did not serve me anymore. I just peeled it off with a lot of help, of course. And I felt like just kind of a new person, and I felt like the best version of me, and I felt like just me. Like I was me. And of course, I still had some fear. I wasn't like, oh, I'm me and I'm fully unafraid now. It was like, no, there's still some fear, and there's still all these, deeply ingrained patterns and generational traumas, and there's still a hell of a lot to work on and fix. There always will be. But I will say, I felt amazing. Like I just felt so good for the first time in my adult life that I could remember, where I felt good and I felt inspired and I felt enthusiastic about life. Finally, like I felt fucking good to be alive, and I just wanted to have that feeling in my life. So I put it on my vision board along with, like I said, all that other stuff. And the crazy thing was, I hung it up on the closet door of my childhood bedroom, which I'm so lucky to have my amazing parents who have let me. I'm kind of like a gypsy. I just bump around, and then in transitional periods, I end up living at my parents' house. So shout out to my parents. You guys are amazing for just always graciously letting your 30-year-old grown woman child back into your home. Like I said, I'm really grateful I have that. I know not everybody has that opportunity to, during transition periods, go live with their parents. But anyway, that's kind of my nest for these in-between spaces in my life, which I have had plenty of them. Like I said, I've gone through many deaths and rebirths of varying flavors and degrees in my whole 20s. But so back to the vision board, I kind of forgot about it. But after I quit my job, I had that Wachuma ceremony, and then I had the talk with my hypnotherapist, and then I quit my job, and I ended up just moving from San Francisco and moving back in with my parents. I had absolutely no plans. I had no backup plans. I had no idea where I wanted to go. I had a little idea. I thought Mexico, Peru, or Costa Rica. That was my idea, but I wasn't totally committed to any of those places. And I moved my stuff back into my parents' house. Again, thank you, Mom and Dad, for putting up with me and graciously hosting me. And then I just waited. I waited for a job to come in. And I should mention here, it wasn't just the Wachuma and the hypnotherapist that really helped me. I've noticed that a lot of things come in threes. A lot of things work that way, for not just for me, but for a lot of people. The third thing, I think this came in between the Wachuma and the astrology, or the hypnotherapy appointment, was this astrology reading I had where, sorry, I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but this was crazy too, because this guy, the same guy who recommended the hypnotherapist, recommended this astrologer. So since the hypnotherapist was so amazing, I was like, okay, I'll check out this astrologist woman too. And dang, she is so amazing too. And just another magical, like amazing, down to earth, awesome human being. So grateful to have met her, have her in my life. I had a session with her. She knew nothing about me except, my birth time, birth date, location, name. And this woman, within an hour and a half, was able to tell me so much about my life up until that point in detail. And then she was able to tell me about the next 18 months of my life. So like what I should be focusing on because I'll be supported by the planets, and what I could kind of put on the back burner for now. And so at this particular juncture in my life, I think I had either I hadn't quite quit my job yet, but it was in the back of my mind, and she told me, if you're not in a fulfilling job right now would be a great time to find a new job opportunity, because you will get not just one job opportunity, but you will get many. So make sure to hold out if you do end up quitting your job, to try to find a more fulfilling one. Don't just jump at the first opportunity. Be patient and be selective, because you will find the perfect job opportunity for you. And because this woman was so right about so many of the other things she said, and because then I had that hypnotherapy appointment, I just was like, okay, why not believe this? Why not believe what she's saying? So she was spot on. I had a couple different job opportunities present themselves when I moved back home with my parents, but they just didn't feel quite right. And I think I still had this astrologist's words in the back of my head saying, wait it out. Just trust. The right opportunity is going to come. And so then I saw the Dreamglade posting about how they needed a yoga instructor and facilitator to come work at Dreamglade for 6 months. And it was crazy because, like, the 6-month thing, I had literally been telling people when they were asking me what I wanted to do next, I was saying, I don't know, maybe just go drink ayahuasca in the jungle for 6 months. Like, I said that phrase to a lot of people. And then when I saw this job posting, I was like, oh, this is it, because it's at Dreamglade. I know this place. I know this people. This is the place that started it all for me. This ayahuasca is the medicine that started it all for me. And the job was to be a yoga instructor, but he literally said on the listing, you don't have to have your yoga teacher training, which I did not. So that was perfect. And he casually mentioned that I'd have to be a chef on the weekends, which I was like, I'm not a cook. And he was like, don't worry, it's not a big deal. But when I came here, that was the most stressful part of my job, was the cooking at the beginning, because I am a Virgo. I have Virgo a lot of times in my chart. If you don't know anything about astrology yet, that's totally okay. But it basically means I can be a perfectionist. And when I was not a great cook at the beginning, it stressed me out. It made me upset. So I quickly got to be a lot better at that part of my job. But all this to say, I just wanted to tell you guys what my actual job is. So it's funny because my job title is something like, yoga instructor / weekend chef / ceremony facilitator. But really, when people hear I'm the yoga instructor and then they spend a week or two here at Dreamglade, they're like, that is the smallest part of your job here. Like, we would never just call you the yoga instructor, because I teach 2 1-hour classes here a week, and the rest of the week I'm pretty much working most of the time. And by working, I mean not like opening up a laptop and answering emails, thank God, but I mean talking with guests, talking them through just stuff in their lives that's holding them back, things that came up during an ayahuasca ceremony, things that they need help with interpreting, or just like fun talks. I've met so many amazing people here. And yes, I also teach yoga, but I would say that is a very small part of my job. I cook food on the weekends, and I help as a facilitator during those ceremonies that we have Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I help. What that looks like physically is just like helping people in and out of the bathroom, or holding their hand if they're going through a tough time, or maybe bringing them some water or tissue paper or whatever. I could get deep into the ceremony stuff, but at a high level, that's pretty much what I do here. And it's just so crazy to look back on my life thus far. I'm 32 and a half, and the life path that I've gone on, and to be sitting here talking to you as the human that I am right now, it feels like just a completely different human than I was when I came here like 6 or 7 years ago, whenever that was the first time, because I really do think I am a different human. Like, I have a snake tattoo in my wrist, and it has a lot of meanings for me, but one of the deepest ones is to remind me that a snake continuously sheds its skin. And that's another thing that amazing astrologer told me, was she's like, you're like a snake. You're just going to be constantly shedding your skin, shedding layers during this lifetime. And she explained to me that that could be why I was feeling a deep, deep sadness, because I just feel like I can't hold on to anything. Like nothing is permanent. Everything will always just fall away from me. And she didn't, like I said, she didn't know me at all. But that was just so spot on that I almost cried. And now I've gotten more comfortable with shedding my skin, which is such a blessing. Because instead of, the skin is going to shed anyway. So instead of trying to hold on to it and be like, no, 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 I loved my old skin. Like, I want to hold on to it and keep it. It's like, okay, we're accepting that the skin is falling off, and now I'm slithering out just a much shinier, healthier, maybe a little bit wiser version of myself. And to just embrace that. So that's been a big part of me, and I'm just eternally grateful for ayahuasca. She has been an amazing, mind-blowing, terrifying, awe-inspiring, gorgeous plant medicine. I can't even explain how much she's helped me and what ayahuasca even is. That's a whole nother topic, but I'm eternally grateful to ayahuasca and to all the people at Dreamglade, Stace, Drew. They're my family now. I just love them so much, and they're just some of the best humans I've ever met. And same with Raul and Lydia. So I'm eternally grateful for everything in my life. Like I said, big shout out to my parents who just continue to have patience for me as I kept kind of trying different new things in life, and then being like, no, I don't like that, and then would come back to home base and regroup. So I'm just really grateful, really, really grateful that I've had that home base to return to. I recognize that not everyone has that, and I feel really privileged. And like I said, all I can feel is grateful. There was a period of time where I felt incredibly guilty for having all the things that I have, like looking the way I look and being born where I was born, with the family that I was born into. So many things I just got really blessed with, and instead of feeling guilty for it, I think it's more productive to just feel really, really fucking grateful. Just so grateful for everything in my life, all the ups and downs, and I'm grateful to be exactly where I am right now. I'm grateful for all of my teachers, the plant medicine teachers, and the human teachers, and like I said, my astrologer, and my hypnotherapist, and yada, yada, yada. I could go on and with all the people who helped me, but really, you can find teachers anywhere. Like, there's teachers in your life every single day. Life will give you something that can help you on your path, a lesson for you to learn if you are open-minded, if you are looking for it, if you are present and aware, and if you are paying attention. And I think I will say this on other podcasts too, but a friendly reminder that it's not like I'm a finished product and I have everything figured out, but I am so much happier than I ever have been in my life, and it's because I have taken these leaps of faith. I have followed my intuition, even when it didn't feel like a choice, when it felt like it was just screaming at me like, you cannot go on that way, you shall not pass. It was like, it didn't feel like I had a choice. But anyway, life can be really painful sometimes and really hard. And now when I have challenges and pain, I just see them differently. It's like, this is part of the human condition. None of us are alone in this. We are all together in this. And there's a lot more to talk about with all of this stuff, but for now, I think this is a good enough introduction to why I am sitting in this hammock in the middle of the Amazon jungle at a shamanic healing center. So, if you've listened all the way through, God bless you. I love you. Thank you so much for listening and taking the time to get to know me and hear a little bit about my background and how I got here. Sending you so much love from the bottom of my heart, and I hope you have a wonderful day.